Hello viewers, this is Wolf here, welcome to Wolf's Haven and to another Monster Hunter figure review. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Capcom Figure Builder Standard Plus Volume 26. Now this is going to be the final volume within the Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak line of figures. After this, we're jumping straight into Monster Hunter Wilds and all that good stuff, but this volume is going to completely cap off Sunbreak. And if we take a look to the box, I already really love the environment that we have here, and if we pan around to the sides to see exactly what monsters we're going to finish this line off with, starting on this side here, we are going to get a model of Primordial Malzeno. There is Violet Mizutsune. Right over here we do have Flaming Espinas. We do have Seething Bazelgeuse. And last but not least, we do have Risen Chameleos and Risen Shagaru Magala. A bunch of very heavy hitter monsters that I was really looking forward to having in figure form here. The one that I'm looking forward to in particular is Primordial Malzeno, because that form of Malzeno just looks so cool. But without any further ado, we're going to open this up, unbox all of these figures, and take a look at them individually. So let's jump into this. So if we open this up here, you can see that we have our pack of 6 right here. Starting with this one, you can take a look at the box aesthetic here, and of course it does have all of the monsters featured on this again. This little mini box does look pretty cool. But let's open this up and see what monster graces us. Alright, so the very first one here, and again, this is something that I really liked from the previous sets. We are getting stickers of the monster's icons, so we do get a sticker of Risen Shagaru Magala here, which looks very cool. Like, you just gotta love those yellow highlights on the body here, and the icon overall just looks very good in this water brush aesthetic here. So the other thing too is that with all of these packs, we do get a secret monster. And just judging by the silhouette on the back here, this looks like we're going to be getting a transparent version of Scorned Magnamalo. So I'm really looking forward to that, because Scorned Magnamalo was one of my favorites of one of the previous sets. So this is going to be the pack here with Risen Shagaru Magala, and those wings are looking so good in the packaging here. I can't wait to assemble this and see what it looks like completely assembled. And then just here's a little preview of the body a little bit here. So we'll definitely assemble that later. And we'll unbox all of these monsters first. So that's the first one taken care of. Onto box 2. So here we do have Violet Mizutsune. And so far, Violet Mizutsune is actually looking pretty good in this smaller scale here. I did do a review of the creator's model, the much larger statue of Violet Mizutsune, and I'm very curious to see how this stacks up compared to that one. And then, of course, we do get Violet Mizutsune's icon in a sticker, looking very good. So on to box 3. Oh, okay, here we go. So, box 3 is going to hold Primordial Malzeno. So, you can see that there's some big packaging here, because we have a lot of additional parts with the wings. They are positioned in such a way that it does look like it's going to take up a bit more space than the other Malzenos. But so far, Primordial Malzeno is looking pretty good in the packaging here. So I can't wait to assemble that later. And then, of course, we're going to get the sticker for Primordial Malzeno, and it just looks really cool. I love this aesthetic here, with the whites, the blues, and the golds. It's such a beautiful color combination here. It really makes Malzeno look like a knight. So this looks really cool here. And then, of course, we do have this arm piece for Scorned Magnamalo, and it's going for a pink, transparent aesthetic here. So on to box 4. So the next monster we're going to be taking a look at is Flaming Espinas. The icon looking really cool with those red highlights there. And then, of course, right in the package here, we do have his massive wings there. And Flaming Espinas right there. Now, on to the penultimate box. This one looks like Seething Bazelgeuse. And that is indeed the case. So here we have the icon of Seething Bazelgeuse here, which this is actually pretty cool. Because I do like how they redesigned Seething Bazelgeuse's icon compared to how it was in Monster Hunter World. Some of these little parts, which are supposed to symbolize like the bombs, I guess, coming off of his body, almost kind of look like flower petals. But it is a really nice aesthetic here on this artwork. I do really like that. And then, of course, Seething Bazelgeuse right here with those glowing bombs in the package. I'm actually very curious to see how this actually stacks up compared to the older Seething Bazelgeuse, if it's designed any differently. I will bring both of them down once I look at them individually, and then we can compare how different the two different models are. So, on to the final box here. So this one is, of course, going to be Risen Chameleos. And here we go. We do have Risen Chameleos' icon here, again looking very good with those yellow highlights around the body. I mentioned before, when I unboxed the original Chameleos, how much I really liked the aesthetic of his icon here, and having a sticker of it would be really cool. This version of it, with this color swap, looks even better than the other one in my opinion, so pretty happy to have that. And of course we do have the main body of Scorned Magnamalo here, which we'll assemble later. And here is Risen Chameleos right in the packaging here, and he is looking very good. I'm really liking how they've detailed the yellow highlights on the ends of the body, on the different appendages. So we'll assemble that a little bit later and get a good look at that. So we're going to fast forward from this part here, assemble all of the statues, and then we'll take a look at them, and I'll give my final impressions on them. So here we have all of the monsters completely assembled and set up on their stands, and I was very impressed with how they've detailed these monsters when I was assembling them. A lot of the smaller details and the minutia of these particular monsters does come through very nicely here, and we're going to take a look at each individual one to see how good some of the detailing is. But honestly, with this set of monsters here, I think they did a really good job capping off Sunbreak with this. So the first monster we're going to take a look at is Violet Mizutsune, and I did mention that I was going to compare this with the creator's model, Violet Mizutsune, which I have right here. So first things first, we'll just take a look at this version of Violet Mizutsune first, and one of the things I think they did very well is the patterning on this version. They did make a lot of the patterns on Mizutsune's fins and facial area very bold and very distinct, and honestly, it comes through very nicely here. I'm honestly very impressed with how they've detailed some of the line work and some of the paint around these patterns and the different frills here. They do look very good here, especially on the fins on the main body here. Everything here is very bold, very distinct, and it comes through very nicely. Some of the subtle color changes around the body do look really good, like right here, as we come from these very white scales and transitioning into these very bright bluish purple parts here, just underneath the fins. And there is a glossy effect that's put onto the scales of Violet Mizutsune here, so you can just see, just right behind the fins here, there is a very bright glossy effect which goes all the way down the scales here, which does look very good. It does make Mizutsune look like he's covered in oil, and some of the transition spots here do come through very nicely here, as you can see where the scales meet the black tail. There is a bit of a blue transition here, which does look very good as it heads out into the black area of the tail, and the tail does actually have some subtle color changes through it. You can see there are some distinct blues and purples on certain parts of the tail, like right here, and then on the ends of the fur tips here, which does come through very nicely. I also love this shade of purple that they have on these fins here, on the very sides of the tail. It does have a glossy effect here, but that shade of purple really does contrast the white scales very beautifully here on Violet Mizutsune. So this model is looking very good. On the underside as well, we do have these almost faded blue colors with a little bit of a green influence on the underside here, which does look very good, and it does contrast the white scales. On this side, you can see that there's a lot more of that glistening effect with that gloss on the scales back here. So overall, Violet Mizutsune looks very good here. I'm actually very happy with how they've designed it. In the facial area, when we take a look at the eyes, of course we're not going to get too much detail on the eyes, because again, typically at the smaller scale, they do kind of sacrifice that for some of the other color detail around the body. But with that said, it does still look pretty good around the facial area, and it is carrying through more of that gloss around the body to make it look like Violet Mizutsune is coated in a layer of oil. So Violet Mizutsune does come through very nicely here, and as we compare it with the creator's model, Violet Mizutsune, honestly, I do think that this version, the smaller version of Violet Mizutsune, does compare quite nicely with the creator's model. Usually, I would usually have the opinion that the creator's model is significantly better, which to a certain extent it is, because there is some details here that they did flesh out a bit more, especially in the facial area. But I do like how, when compared to the regular figure builder, how the actual detailing, the line work and the paint of the fins and whatnot come through a lot more noticeably on this version of Mizutsune here compared to this. You can kind of see just how the patterning here is a little bit more faded on the creator's model Violet Mizutsune. Even here on these fins, the line work and, you know, some of those patterns are a little bit more faded. It is like, I wouldn't blame you if you saw this and you maybe missed some of those patterns on Mizutsune's body here. Even here, some of the patterning is not the brightest, but yeah, I think overall, this version of Violet Mizutsune does look very good. So I'm very happy with that. So next, we're going to take a look at Seething Bazelgeuse here, which is definitely a pretty cool monster that was first introduced in Monster Hunter World. This version of Seething Bazelgeuse actually looks incredible, and I do have the world version of Seething Bazelgeuse here from the exact same line, and just comparing the two together, I really like the Sunbreak version of Seething Bazelgeuse here so much better than the world version. They added a bit of a glossy effect onto the various scales of Seething Bazelgeuse here, and they also added a bit more color. So there is a bit of like a cobalt blue on a lot of these scales around the head area, as well as around the jaw, and on the tail as well here. And on top of that, there's some more of that cobalt blue on the wings right here, as you can see, just before it meets the membrane of skin there. But yeah, they've added a bit of a glossy effect on that cobalt, which really brings it out here and allows it to really stand out whilst having these kind of magma lines all throughout the gaps in the scaling there, which I think does look very good. The bombs on the underside of the tail look very good. They're very colorful, which I do appreciate, because they do have some oranges and pinks here to kind of show that there's multiple different bombs here, and they're all in kind of like different phases before they explode. So I do think that that's actually very cool. You don't really get that effect very much here, just behind the jaw. But overall, this version of Seething Bazelgeuse does look very good. The back is very shiny here, where we have these very bright silver scales mixing with a bit of bronze here as it kind of gets down to the back, the very end of the tail, and more of that silver on the wings. One of the things that I like a lot about this version of Seething Bazelgeuse is the pose. I actually like this a lot more than the pose that they chose with the Monster Hunter World version here, because it just looks a lot more dynamic. It makes Seething Bazelgeuse look a lot more angular. I do love how this wing is kind of positioned this way, sticking out off to the side, and then you do have this wing here, which does stick out a little bit more, so you can see a good portion of both wings from this angle here, and it just looks very good. I really enjoy this pose. From the front, looking at it front on, you can basically see the majority of Seething Bazelgeuse's body here. The tail, you basically see all of this wing as it kind of curves up from the back, and then this wing, the entirety of it as it stretches out to the side here. It's a very good pose, and I really, really like this. I just hold these two side by side, you can kind of just see the comparison between these two different versions of Bazelgeuse. And again, I personally think that, like I said before, this version, this attempt at Bazelgeuse, I think is much better than what they did here in the past. Not to say that this one is bad, but I just think that they kind of just upped the standard here. So, Seething Bazelgeuse is definitely a winner from this pack here. I think they did a great job with it. So now we'll take a look at Flaming Espinas, which Flaming Espinas is, of course, looking great here as well. An abundance of orange all around the body here, especially on the membrane of the wing here, right here. And I love these color transitions as we have these bright yellows and oranges as they kind of fade out as they get to the end of the wings here. And of course, we have this very bright orange spike here, right on the front of the face here, looking very good. The purple tongue and everything here. Very spiky body, just like the regular Espinas, of course, but of course, the entire body is completely covered, completely bathed in orange here, and it does look pretty good when compared to the regular Espinas as well. So, I'm pretty happy with this model. I have to say, I do think that Flaming Espinas is probably my least favorite of this pack, but despite that, it's still a very good looking statue. It's just that these other statues are a lot more showy, and I just appreciate some of these other monsters a bit more compared to Espinas here. So now, we're going to take a look at Risen Chameleos, which is definitely one of my favorite looking statues of this set here. And they brought this statue to life very well here. A lot of the colors here come together and they contrast each other very nicely, especially these purples as they kind of mix with these oranges around the body here. At the very end of the tail, there is a bit of like a translucent effect here on all of these orange parts. So as soon as light hits it, you can just see here in the lighting, all of those orange components around the body does glow very nicely and very brightly in light here because of that transparent effect, and it looks very beautiful here. And just the way that the oranges and yellows contrast the purple on the rest of the body, it does look very good. The tongue looks exceptional here too. I do love that transition here where we have like this solid color here as it goes out into this transparent aesthetic here. The head has like a glowing red section at the very top here, looking very good as it comes out into this yellowish orange spike at the very end here. Chameleos' face is looking very good here, and of course, I absolutely love these color transitions as we go through the back of the head here, going all the way down the rest of the body. Everything here just looks very good, and of course on the wings, I love the cracking that we have here, some of the colors that we have going in between the scaled sections here around the wings, and then of course my favorite parts of the wings are these wingtips as they kind of flow from the solid color into this translucent orange and yellow on the wingtips. They look very good. So I think they definitely captured Risen Chameleos very nicely here. Really love this statue. I love the way that they did Chameleos originally, but Risen Chameleos, very good job. They did a really good job with this for sure. So now we're going to take a look at Shagaru Magala, Risen Shagaru Magala. And much like Risen Chameleos, this version of Shagaru Magala looks absolutely incredible. Shagaru Magala is very, very beautiful here with a lot of these bright, translucent oranges and yellows all throughout these massive wings. And the fact that we're using this pose here of Shagaru Magala with the wings completely outstretched, making him look like a massive star, I feel like, yeah, those oranges and yellows really bring that effect out here, and it looks very good. And especially if you have this posed up in an area where this is a bit higher than you, if you pose this in like in a higher position, you're going to get that lighting effect as Shagaru Magala is looking down at you. The lighting effect glowing the wings here and making it look very good. Again, the entirety of the body looks very good, where we have these bronze colors going throughout the entirety of the scales from head to toe here. And then, of course, we do have those almost faded green colors throughout the arms and the underbody here. A bit of patterning on the chest area of Shagaru Magala, and then we of course have that translucent orange and yellow color on the horns here. So this is looking incredible. Even the tail here, we take a look to the back of the body. The tail here, the very tip of the tail does have that translucent effect there, which looks honestly incredible. Even at the back of Shagaru Magala here, we have this black line that kind of separates the oranges here, and everything just comes together very nicely here. I think that they did a very good job with Shagaru Magala, and yeah, even on the claws here, I feel like the colors, these purple colors for the claws, do come through very nicely on this as well. They are a bit overshadowed by the wings, but I think that that's kind of what you want here. So the only negative or really the only major negative that I have with this Shagaru Magala is that I think mine has a defect. So you can actually see right in here on this wing, there's like this black spot right in there, which again, it's not a huge deal because it's very small. Like I'm gonna notice it because I know it's there, but ultimately you're not really gonna be seeing this, but it is something to keep in mind. I've never really had a defect like this before from this line, so it is kind of interesting to see this, especially since it's in one of the transparent parts or translucent parts of the body, so that is a little bit weird. But overall, this Risen Shagaru Magala does look very good. So last but not least, we're going to take a look at Primordial Malzeno here. And this one, I have to say, is probably the best of the bunch. I just absolutely love the pose that they chose to go with here with Primordial Malzeno. I always love this aesthetic where we have this one wing completely outstretched here, like that, looking like a massive blade, and then the other wing is completely coiled in. And on top of that, the colors all throughout the body look very beautiful. I've always loved this aesthetic for Primordial Malzeno. The whites, the silvers, the faint blues on these various parts of the wingtips here, as well as the golds and how they all kind of coalesce together, really brings out a very knightish design for Primordial Malzeno here, which I think looks very good and is very fitting for this monster here. All of the golds around the body do look very good, like they're very shiny. A little bit faded in some aspects, but I think that the shine does still come through here, especially when we come down through these different segments in the wings. It does look very good. On here, you can see there's a bit of a gold glow here, while it's surrounded by some bronze colors on the tips and the back of it as well. If we take a look at Primordial Malzeno's face here, not a whole lot of detail on the face here. The eye is a very simplistic color, but there is a good amount of detail here with some of the difference in color around the scales around the face here, which does look very good. I do think the chest area with this armor does look very good with the different colored segments, so all of that's great, as well as the golden armor on the legs here and how they jut out. That looks very good here. And then, yeah, just taking a look at the back of Primordial Malzeno, you just see how the blues on the wingtips really are very distinct here on the wingtips at the back. Very good looking, and then, of course, just on the back here, we have just this solid gray silver color going all the way back to the tail. There is a very slight gloss around this area, but not too much to make this look too plasticky, I feel. And then, of course, there's a bit of gold on the little trident spike thing here on the end of the tail here, which does look very good. But I think overall, this Malzeno looks very good, and I think it's probably the best one that they've modeled throughout this whole, throughout the whole figure builder standard model line. So, honestly, after seeing this Primordial Malzeno, I really want Capcom to release a creator's model version of this Malzeno. I do think it was a little bit weird that we do have two versions of Malzeno. Of course, we have the regular one, but then we have a version of Malzeno in its blending form, which, don't get me wrong, that version looks incredible, but I do think it's weird that we got a blending version of Malzeno instead of a Primordial Malzeno. I'm hoping that they are working on a Primordial Malzeno creators model in the future, because this design, like, honestly, it really begs for a version of a much larger scale version of this. Like, I would love to see a larger Primordial Malzeno, because this model just looks too cool. This monster is too cool to not get a creator's model, so I hope that that's something that happens in the future. But yeah, that's pretty much all of the monsters here. We do have the secret monster, which is, of course, Scorned Magnamalo here, and this looks incredible, actually. I think I mentioned before, usually I'm not the biggest fan of these translucent models, but honestly, with the recent packs, they have been doing a better job with how they've designed the attachment points, and that is very consistent with this version of Scorned Magnamalo here. I do love this abundance in this pink color all throughout the body of Scorned Magnamalo. It does look very good. It's very bright once light hits it, so this thing is going to glow nicely in a display area once you have light hitting this thing. It does look very good, especially on the tips of the tail here, because you can kind of see how it kind of fades, it kind of like transitions into a bit of a much brighter pink right here, as you see a bit of the energy on the very ends of the tail. Same thing with the energy on the blades here. It does have a much brighter glow than the rest of the body here. But yeah, overall, this does look pretty cool. This is probably one of my favorite, maybe my second or third favorite of these translucent monsters that they package into this whole set here. So the one thing that's interesting is that this is actually going to be the very last translucent monster that we're going to be getting in this Standard Plus series, because once we start moving into the next volumes, apparently Capcom is actually going to be packaging in the stone versions of these monsters. So that's actually going to be very interesting to see how that looks and how that contrasts with the other monsters. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But yeah, Scorned Magnamalo is officially going to be the last monster of this aesthetic. So definitely cool to have this. But yeah, overall, I do think that this was a very great set. The one thing that was very interesting is that the majority of the monsters here are all very large. I think I did mention before in one of the other sets where Scorned Magnamalo is just so large that he doesn't fit into his base. The same thing can be said about Primordial Malzeno here. You can just see how far this wing stretches out from the base here. If you're strapped for space, you're going to have probably a tough time finding a spot for this, because you're not going to get any flexibility with this wing. You just have to respect the amount of horizontal space that you have for this, because you can just see right here, like even with like two other monsters lined up, it basically occupies a space of, sorry, so that wasn't really on camera, but if you just line up two of the monsters here, you can kind of see that like that wing almost like occupies the space of three different figure builders here. So there is a lot of space that this is going to be taking up, and again, with a lot of the other monsters here, again, Shagaru Magala is going to be taking up a lot of space, especially vertical space, as it's posed a little bit higher, at a higher elevation. Flaming Espinas is, of course, going to be taking up a lot of space because of that wingspan and everything else. The pose for Seething Bazelgeuse is going to take up a bit of space as well. I think the only small monsters here is basically Violet Mizutsune and Risen Chameleos. So that is definitely something to keep in mind if you guys are interested in picking up this pack. These are definitely on the larger side compared to some of the older figure builder models here. And yeah, with these monsters here, this is finally going to conclude the entirety of the Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak series here. And what a way to do it with some really heavy hitter monsters. Some very cool monsters here. Some monsters I honestly think are very deserving of getting their own creator's model. Primordial Malzeno, please Capcom, do that. But yeah, what a way to do it, and I'm really looking forward to the Monster Hunter Wilds figure builders once they come later on this year, and I'm very interested in seeing what they do with them, like the progression of how they end up detailing the monsters, as well as some of the things that they end up packaging with them. So it's going to be cool looking forward now that we've put Monster Hunter Rise to bed now, and yeah, I'm very happy to finally have a lot of these monsters here. Very happy with how they've covered the whole Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak series with these statues. And yeah, I think they personally did a very good job with this whole series here. So that's gonna basically do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys found it informative. If you guys are interested in picking up this pack, if you like Primordial Malzeno, or you just want to get a small model of Primordial Malzeno, I honestly highly recommend this pack, especially just to get Chameleos, Violet Mizutsune, and Shagaru Magala, even just Seething Bazelgeuse. All of these monsters here look very good. They did a very good job modeling them, and I think if you have any reservations about picking this up, I honestly think that you won't be disappointed picking up any of these monsters. So if you're looking into getting these, I definitely recommend picking these up. But with that, that's going to bring this review to a close. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and there's definitely going to be a lot more Monster Hunter figures and content coming in the future, so I hope you guys stay tuned for all of that. But until then, I hope you guys have a good day or good night, depending on where you are, and I will see you all later.